this guy is absolutely taking advantage of her. Whether or not he wants to admit it is another thing, but
this is legitimate fraud. You could have some sort of like charges pressed against your dad.
This is one of those instances where you have to pay the stupid tax.
I really don't like that he said, no, this isn't financial abuse. You were gaslighting this person, right?
Like, how long was this person gonna just hide this secret bank account?
This is a really scary situation because this person has no options here. Welcome to Just Another Money podcast with your hosts, Lauren and Nick. We're here to take real-world money situations and break them down into actionable steps you can actually use.
Whether you're budgeting, paying off debt, or saving for your future, we're all about making finances easy to understand and putting you in control of your money. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today we are talking about toxic money. From secret bank accounts to stealing money from your kids, we're going to dive into some real situations from people who are dealing with toxic money and honestly just toxic people. But before we get into that, Lauren and I wanted to share a question that was submitted to the show. And just as a quick reminder, if you want to get your questions answered live on the show, you can go directly to our website, justanothermoneypodcast.com, and hit the submit a question button. Or if you're a subscriber to our newsletter, you can just reply directly to any of those emails and that question will get sent to us. But Lauren, do you want to kick things off and share the question for today?
Yep. So it says, hi, Lauren and Nick. I'm a 27-year-old graduate student switching from a corporate job with a mid $100,000 salary, going to school part-time, to becoming a full-time student with a $40K salary, soon to be living on a small stipend next fall. I follow the general advice of keeping money in a high-yield savings account, having a rainy day fund, etc. However, I'm worried that once I have less income, that I won't have any savings to put towards retirement or general savings. I'm already looking for cheaper alternatives for housing and saving up in my current job. What are some other aspects we tend to ignore when saving that could be practiced?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there needs to be a shift in mindset and honestly just expectations. You know, if you're going from making 150K, it sounds like, to making 40K, like there's just not going to be disposable income to put into savings and to put in retirement. And so I think you need to adjust those expectations and just kind of settle into the reality of things. But it sounds like he's doing good. Like he saved up an emergency fund. I would just make sure that that's a full 3 to 6 months emergency fund. And if you can even save up more than that, that's just going to help you get along further. But, yeah, he's really going to have to adjust his lifestyle to fit his new income. Like if someone's maybe losing out on 25% of their income, like, you can probably get by without making too many changes, but there's really no hiding if you're going down $100,000 plus in salary. Like, yeah, there's no hiding from it. Like, things are going to look drastically different. And I think that's okay, right? Like it sounds like he's making this investment both of money, right, to pay for school and then also his time. But, the hope is that this pays off in the long run, that you can get back into the workforce, hopefully at an even higher income. And then you can kind of make up for lost time and start catching up on that retirement investment. But what do you think, Lauren?
Yeah, I think this person is probably would be back in school to, get further in their career moving forward. So yeah, I think it's just a simple mindset shift where you just have to realize, like, okay, this is so temporary. I'm going to be in school for 2 years, unless they're in like a PhD program or something. They don't say where they're, living on the 40K for potentially like 5 years. But again, that's a very short amount of time in the grand scheme of things. So just shifting your lifestyle to match that, understanding that you're not going to be able to probably match or, max out your Roth IRAs or whatever you're doing to invest. And just understanding that it's just temporary and that whenever you come out on the other side of this, your income's probably going to go up and you're going to be able to catch up on it. So
yeah, absolutely. And then once you get out of, you graduate, you hopefully land an even higher paying job. At that point, then you can shift your focus to really catching up on that retirement, maxing out all the retirement accounts that you have available to you. And then, that's kind of the gamble you're taking with anything that's going to take a few years is the hope is that this puts you in a better position afterwards. And then you can make up for those lost, hopefully it's like around 2 years, because that's not going to make a huge difference in your investing journey, especially if you've already started investing and now you're just hitting pause. So I think, shift focus to school, do as well as you can, and land a job that's going to make this time off from investing really worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, should we go ahead and jump into the first question today?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So this one says, am I the asshole for asking my boyfriend to pay me back? My boyfriend and I are both 28 years old and have been dating for 8 years now. I have a salary job in tech and make about $60K more than him. I lent him $1,000 to help pay for his deposit on a new car, but he still hasn't paid me back yet. He paid back some, but isn't actively trying to pay me back when I know he gets paid. This alone wouldn't be an issue, but I've actually paid for most of our trips, his school supplies, his classes, his bills, and more over the past 8 years. I've never asked him to pay me back before. But as we get older and deeper into our relationship, I want to ask him to pay me back. He owes me about $3,000 in debt so far and keeps telling me he wants me to pay me back, but never actually does. I feel like he's unintentionally taking advantage of me because he knows I can survive without the money. I feel super guilty asking him because I make significantly more than him and he's always strapped for cash, but he gets noticeably irritated when I bring it up. Yesterday, I called him to ask about paying back the rest of the card deposit, but he refused since he would only have $200 left in his account. I got irritated and just said, never mind, forget it, and hung up on him. Am I the asshole?
Yeah, I would say she's definitely not the asshole. And you know, I wouldn't even call it unintentional. Like, this guy is absolutely taking advantage of her. Yep. And whether or not he wants to admit it is another thing, but I'm sure he knows that he's taking advantage of the situation. And I think on her part, you know, this warrants a serious like reevaluation of the relationship. You know, like setting aside the money that he owes you, right? Like, you guys are 28 years old. Like he's a 28-year-old adult. He's been working for a few years. Like, you have to evaluate, is this relationship worth it? Like, are we both on the same trajectory or path? Like, you don't have to be at the same income levels. I'm not saying that, but like, are you both striving for more, or is it kind of just you striving for more and you're kind of dragging him along with you? Like, I don't know. That's something where I feel like if you've been dating for a really long time, like you can start to see that separation, especially like you guys have gone through being really young adults to now settling into adulthood, that you have to assess, like, are we aligned again? Because I think when you're young, you guys are in college, like it's easy to be aligned because your circumstances make that. But now that you're on your own, like, are you guys striving for bigger and better things, or is it just you who's kind of pulling him along with you? So yeah, I don't know. Definitely not the asshole though.
No, definitely not. And it's like, at what point do you just say, I can't give anything else? You know, yeah. Yes, you make significantly more than him, but it doesn't seem like he's interested in paying you back. And this is just not a dynamic you want. It's almost like a parent-child type dynamic, you know, like I'm giving this money and he won't pay me back, you know, like I think that's just going to ruin your relationship in the long run. I really think this person has to like think about like, okay, give a timeline for yourself. If this person does not do what they're saying they're going to do, which is paying me back this money, am I willing to continue on with this relationship? Or I just need to cut the ties, forget about the $3,000 that he owes me, and just walk away from this? Because in the long run, it seems like this person's going to drag you down much further than $3,000.
Yeah. And the part that really gets me is like, you brought this up to him and he just kind of got irritated with you. And it would be completely different if he was like coming to you and saying, hey, like, I'm really sorry. Like, things are really hard for me right now. Opens up about his financial situation and then says, look, like, I'm willing to, like, can I pay you 10, 20 bucks a week? Like, can I do something to show you that I'm not just taking advantage of you, but I'm really trying to use this like gift you've given me. Right. Yeah. Like, especially because she's paid for so many things in their relationship for so long. Like, if he took some accountability, I don't think there would necessarily be an issue with that, especially if she was like open and willing to do that. But it's the fact that he's irritated and the fact that there's no accountability, there's no plan, there's no like coming to her and saying like, I'm really sorry for putting you in this position. That's the part that I think really is kind of the thing that's breaking this apart right now, you know? Yeah.
She's like missing the signs, it seems like, that he really is just, he doesn't seem to care that he owes her all this money. And maybe he feels like he's entitled to it because she makes more than him, which is just, again, such a nasty place to be in a relationship. So for me, I am going to sit this guy down and say, hey, listen, we're going to map this out together and make a plan for you to pay this back. And if this XY doesn't happen, you know, then we're going to have to consider, you know, going our separate ways. I'm not going to do that. She's been with him for 8 years. At what point do you say this person's just not going to change? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, on the flip side of that, like 8 years is a really long time to commit yourself with, you know, just going through life with someone. Like, this is absolutely worth like one more discussion where you can almost kind of set your boundary and see how he responds to it. But like, I don't think this is like, I don't think you should just throw away the relationship. Like, I think every time when you've hit like that boiling point, the next step shouldn't be some extreme action. It should be, okay, let me give one more opportunity to really assess for myself if I can do this anymore. You know, like, and there's a good chance that maybe he sees how serious you are. He kind of picks up on the tone, and maybe that's the kind of the thing that he needed to get him to realize the situation he's put you in, the situation he's in financially and like with his career. Definitely worth another conversation, but I wouldn't drag this out any further. You know, like the next time you guys are alone, you've had like a decent enough day, like you're not like stressed from the day, like sit down with each other, have a serious conversation and see how he takes it. Cause that will be the real gauge, like his response, his attitude, whether or not he fights you on it. That's going to be the real gauge on if he's capable of changing the behavior and changing, like, honestly, like just the level of respect that he has for you.
Yeah. And I mean, you need to set a timeline for yourself. If you say, hey, within 6 months, if nothing changes, then I need to go, then you need to stick with it. Otherwise, you're signing up for a lifetime of this. So,
yeah.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah. I hate to play devil's advocate, but like, you know, I could imagine someone in his situation is probably feeling like ashamed, and I'm sure he knows that he is taking advantage of the situation. Like, it's hard to say that he wouldn't understand that. Like, there's probably a lot of shame and guilt in there, and that's probably what's driving like such an emotional response to any time this subject comes up. But yeah, like if he doesn't start backing that those feelings of shame and guilt up with actual action, then it's just not worth continuing at this point.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's move on to the next scenario. So this person wrote, my husband has been hiding money. A few months ago, I learned that my husband has a secret stash of cash totaling around $10,000. Had one of our friends not poked fun at him during a night out, I'm not sure I would have ever learned about the stash. I was a bit surprised that he'd hide that much money from me since we combined all our finances when we got married, but we both have good jobs and healthy checkings and savings accounts, so I wasn't too concerned. I thought it was a little dumb that he wasn't investing it somewhere, but, you know, to each their own. Yesterday, he approached me about buying out an investor from a company we have some ownership in. He was incredibly vague and evasive when I asked him how much it would take to buy out the investor. Eventually, I gave in and told him I was fine with whatever he wanted to do. He mentioned pulling funds from our joint account to do the buyout, which is fine by me. Until today. Today, while opening our mail, I discovered that my husband has a separate checking account with around $20,000 in it. No, I've confirmed that this is in addition to the cash stash. I have no idea what's going on. I have a sneaking suspicion that there are more accounts that I'm not aware of. It's making me incredibly uneasy that he's now wanting to pull from our joint account to buy out an investor when he's been funneling money into his own account. Am I overreacting?
No, definitely not. And I don't like that she said that a friend, that she knew this because of a friend made a joke about it. Like, and it's confusing to me because they combine their finances, which is a pretty healthy approach to money, I'd say. And then he's hiding something on the side from his wife, but like a friend knows about it, which is interesting to me. Obviously he has that money set aside for a reason, but I wonder, you know, what that reason is. I'm just making an assumption here, but it seems like outside of this, they have a fairly open relationship. Like if you're sharing your finances with somebody and you're communicating about that, like that seems great. But like, you know, if you have that sort of relationship, can you ask him like flat out, like, hey, what do you have this money for? I found this from the mail today. You know, I'm just curious because I really want to know what he says about it. You know, like, I feel like you have to start there, like ask the question. Would you just ask Nick? Like, I feel like, you know, there's some where I'm like, maybe it might be a little bit of like an abusive relationship, but this seems fairly open to me that I would be like, just see what he says, you know?
Yeah, money is not a topic of conversation that I like to beat around the bush with. Like, I would ask, what is this money for and why have you been keeping it from me? And like, you know, I feel like when people think of the word infidelity, like they typically think of cheating, like something like that. But there's honestly such a thing as financial infidelity. And this is, in my eyes, like this is a breach of the trust that we've built. And also just, it sounds like the game plan that they put together when they first got married. Like if you combined your finances, that didn't just happen. You both had to discuss that. You both had to go through the long process of doing that. Like it sounds like you made a commitment to be open and honest about your money. And then he has been, for who knows how long, keeping this money off to the side and funneling cash towards that secret account. Like it would be different if like he came to her and was like, hey, like I want to do this, right? Like that's a separate conversation. You both got to assess how you feel about that after you've joined expenses. But to keep that hidden is a huge red flag for me. And honestly, something that would like, that could be a deal breaker for me.
Absolutely same. Like I feel like they almost need to see like a therapist or something, because you're going to need to work through that trust, because for me that's broken, especially because somebody outside of our relationship knows about that. So it makes me wonder, like, did you tell this person because you're trying to like hide money in case we were to get divorced or something? You know, it just does not sit well with me here. And if he's worried about something, like, why can't you just do like a post-nuptial agreement? Or if you don't have a prenup already, like, if that's something that's bothering you so bad, like, bring it up to your wife. You already share all your finances. Like, what are you doing? All you're doing is breaking the trust there. And that is, that just does not sit well with me.
Yeah. I mean, or deal with it head on, right? Like, go to therapy or at least have conversations about what the issue is. Like, if you're feeling like you need to hide money from your spouse, there's an underlying issue there. Like, and the solution is not, let me just do it in secrecy and hope my friends don't rat me out. Like how long was this person going to just hide this secret bank account? And would it have ever even come up if the friend didn't like accidentally reveal it? But like, yeah, I don't know. I'm also a big believer that like marriage, like in my eyes, is for life. And I think you both owe it to yourselves to exhaust every possible option to try to repair this. But it has to be backed up with action and a huge change of behavior on his part. Like, he has to earn her trust back. And I think if she doesn't recognize that what a huge breach of trust this is, then like how many other things have been going on in the background that you just aren't aware about because you're not like paying attention to your relationship, essentially. Like if there's a way that you guys can fix this, I think you owe it to yourselves to do that. But man, this is one of those situations where it's like, it would be so hard for me to look at that person the same after finding out that they've been hiding $30,000 from me. And I found out from a friend. You know, it's not like they came clean about it. I had to like find out and dig through mail. And now my suspicion level is like extremely high.
Yeah. And, you know, maybe it started like something small, like, oh, I just wanted this and I just know she wouldn't approve of it. But now it's like, okay, $30,000, like that is a significant amount. And you've obviously been, I don't know their incomes, but like, obviously you've been saving that for a good period of time and your wife knew nothing about it. So you're right. That trust is pretty much broken, especially if it's me. But I mean, it's worth working through, but dang, this is a really hard one.
Yeah. And, you know, in one of our last episodes, when we talked about marriage and finances, like the big thing that we talked about was being open, honest, and transparent with everything. Like, you know, like Lauren, you and I run our finances with our significant others. Like, we run it differently. And that's less of the point of like how to run your finances with your partner. And it's more about, can you be transparent with each other and can you be on the same page? And like, this has failed all of those tests, right? There's no transparency. You guys clearly aren't on the same page. And just like in the last scenario, like it takes a lot of like there needs to be a moment of like self-reflection. Like, can I learn to trust this person again after breaking this trust and this agreement that we've made to each other to be transparent, to have our finances combined? Yeah.
And so I'm going to bring this up to him, see if we can have a conversation, see what he says about it, and then just take it one day at a time from there. Do I need to find a therapist? Do I need to get a divorce? Like, honestly, there's some options here and we're not really sure which way they're going to go. We don't obviously know them, but this is a crazy situation that depending on how he responds could go either way, truly.
Yeah. And to answer your question, I definitely don't think she's overreacting. Like, if anything, she might be like underreacting, right? Like, like you got to kick this up a few levels and like really get to the core of why this is happening. And like, if he is just afraid of like, you know, like sometimes fear makes you do irrational things. And it's hard to believe if it's gotten up to the point where you have $30,000 to the side, but like, you know, fear makes you do irrational things. And if this is coming from a place of like fear, or maybe it started because he lost trust in you for something, like there's probably more to uncover here that could maybe make this an easier transition to where you guys are gaining trust again for each other. But just on the surface, like, he's not in a good position after this, you know?
No. And Nick, I've listened to way too many podcasts, like to not think like this guy has a separate identity. He's got a whole other family, like so many things going through my head here. So yeah, we need to get to the bottom of this or I'm just out of this relationship. But yeah, anyway, let's move on to the next situation here. So this one says, am I the asshole for being upset about my brother stealing $10,000 from my family? Last year, I went on a cruise with my siblings and parents. We all decided to link our bank accounts with our parents' accounts so we could buy things together on the trip. the way the cruises work is you get billed for all your expenses after the cruise rather than paying as you go. My brother decided he was going to gamble every day in the casino and ended up setting money aside leading up to the trip. While on the cruise, he gambled all of his money away, then decided to dip into my parents' funds to keep gambling, which he lost. He ended up continuing until he won it all back and gave it back to my dad as cash, who put it in the room's safe. The next morning, the money was gone, and it turns out my brother stole it from the safe and gambled more throughout the night. By the end of the trip, he lost around $10,000 of my parents' money, along with the money he set aside. He was told he needed to pay it back ASAP, but it's been a year and he still hasn't paid the money back. I don't come from an incredibly well-off family, but we get by. Since the cruise, my other siblings and I have been lending money to our parents so they could afford the basics. Every time money gets brought up, I make a big deal about it not being fair that my brother has gotten away with this. My parents keep telling me it isn't any of my business, and we often get into shouting matches over the situation. Am I the asshole?
This is a tough one because I feel like it's yes and no. Like, this is a legitimate thing to be upset and frustrated about.
Yeah.
You know, like, obviously it's your brother's parents too, but like, these are your parents, and someone, regardless of who it is, screwed over your parents and put them in a tough position to where now the children have to support the parents just so they can get by. Like,
yep.
But on the other side, like, it's really not your place. You know, like, when things happen inside of the family, like, this sounds like it's a situation between your parents and your brother, and for you to continuously like inject yourself into the situation and get into shouting matches, like, it sounds like you are more frustrated with the parents for their lack of a response than you are for what the brother did. And I would be frustrated too, but I don't think it's really your place to one, fight your parents' battles, but also make this situation 10 times harder for your parents, because now they have to deal with the disappointment that they have in the brother, and also the disappointment that they have in you for your, I mean, honestly, kind of childish response to the situation. You know, it's the part where he said, I get into shouting matches. I don't think you're just getting into shouting matches with the brother. You're probably doing it with your parents because they're, you know, like, rightly so, like, they're not having the response that you would expect from it. But I don't know, it's tough. I'm kind of leaning towards saying he's a bit of an asshole for how he handled the situation, not for the situation itself, though.
Yeah, this is a tough one because, like you said, now it's the responsibility of the other siblings to like take care of the parents because of the one bad egg of the family that like took all the money. Yeah. But my thing is, don't ever combine. What was that thing, like, combine bank accounts for cruise? Like,
it made no sense.
Yeah. And you're saying that you had like all this money and you guys went on a cruise. Like, why do you have to help your parents then? You know, like, I don't know if this just was a trip that was out of, you know, the realm of your finances, but I don't know. Maybe you need to set some boundaries with your parents. Hey, if you're not going to hold brother accountable, then I can't be helping you pay for groceries every month. You know what I mean? Because he's the reason that I have to be doing this. So unfortunately, I'm not gonna be able to help anymore unless he has to also help you. So I see it from both sides. I'd be mad too, at one of my siblings, but at the same time, if your parents don't want that back, that's fine, but they also need to face the fallout of it, which is not being able to afford life right now, you know?
Yeah. And I think the person who wrote this really needs to assess, like, and I'm not saying which is the right answer, but they need to assess what's more important, like your relationship with your brother and probably also your parents, or like the principal issue that has happened, that your brother stole money from your parents and hasn't paid them back. Like that would, you know, deeply affect how I would see that person just from like a character level. Like, that would deeply affect it. But is that change of perspective of like how I now see my brother, is that worth losing out on the relationship I have with him? And honestly, it sounds like it would probably really impact the relationship you have with your parents. So, I mean, you got to decide which is more important. And if kind of standing your ground on this issue is more important, then you also got to be okay with the fallout, which is your parents are probably going to lean more towards sheltering the brother just because he's not the one yelling at them, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like he just has to decide, like, okay, you're going to fight with the brother and fight with the parents, or, you know, and like set those boundaries with the parents by not paying for their things anymore. Or are you just going to say, you know what, maybe I'm just going to set the problems aside. I'm not going to be super friendly with my brother because I'm upset with him, but I am going to have a relationship with my parents and I am going to continue to help them because I want to do that. So you have to like take one of those two options there. You can't continue to stay in this cycle, or it's never going to get better, because if brother hasn't paid back yet, he's not going to. We know he's irresponsible with money. He's already made that very clear. So I don't think he's ever going to pay them back. And it's just like a wish that, you know, he's going to go gamble it again. It's just a wish that he's never going to happen. You know what I mean?
I'm hesitant to say that the brother has a gambling issue because he did like plan ahead. He was like, I'm going to set this money aside just for gambling. But on the other hand, like you lost all your parents' money, and then when you won some of it back, you broke into the safe for the family safe in the hotel room and stole all that money and then lost it all. Like probably shouldn't be too hesitant to call it out for what it is, which is it seems like he has an addiction to gambling, and like you're right, like that money is probably never going to be paid back. So are you going to continue to be the instigator in the situation and not allow there to be peace in the family, right? Like I get it. Like this is an unfair situation for you because it's not only just something that you think is deeply wrong, but it's also something that's actually affecting your wallet, like your lifestyle, right? Because you have to pay for your parents because of your brother's mess up. But you got to determine like what's more important to me, the family, like keeping those relationships intact, or standing your ground. And I don't know. It's a tough call because it also just reflects on the parents too. Like, why are you not having the response that a reasonable person would have to the situation?
Right. Yeah.
All right, taking a quick break from today's episode, Lauren and I have some exciting news we'd like to share with you. If you're feeling stuck with your finances and don't know where to start, we have you covered with our one-on-one financial coaching.
These are no strings attached coaching sessions that you can sign up for today. No ongoing commitment. You simply book a session whenever you need one.
Each call is 90 minutes, and by the end of it, you'll have a clear budget to work with and a solid plan to start paying off your debt. Plus, we'll make sure you walk away with some awesome tools to keep you on track, including our budget dashboard and expense tracker, as well as our debt payoff optimizer.
And the best part, you'll get to work with both of us on the call. Together, we'll help you develop the best possible strategy forward, answer your questions, and make sure you feel confident about managing your money.
So if you're ready to get a handle on your budget and kickstart your financial journey forward, check out the link in the show notes to book your first session.
We can't wait to get started with you. Now, back to the episode.
Okay, so why don't we jump into the next one? Did anyone else's parents take money from them? A few years ago, I had a little bit of money saved up for my birthdays, holidays, etc. I would keep this money in my bank account that both my parents had access to, but I didn't realize how big of a mistake that was. One day when I tried making a purchase with my card, it was declined. Obviously being alarmed by this, I went to my dad and he called the bank, and they told him that I had 37 cents left in my account. My dad kept telling me, you spent it all, and he was blaming everything on me and made me feel bad for wasting his time by calling the bank when I was the one who spent all the money in my account. I was very confused by this because I knew I had money in there and there was no way it could have disappeared. I was heartbroken but decided to move on since there was nothing I could do. A few years later, I got a hold of my transactions and figured out that my dad had stolen all of my money out of my bank account and put it on his card. I felt confused because you're supposed to trust your parents while mine were stealing from me. I also very recently found out that he made a Cash App account under my name and social security number and was taking out more money and was sending it to himself. I found this out because the Cash App account that I had made for myself got closed out. I'm assuming this was because he verified with my identity on the account and under my name. When I tried talking to my mom about it, she quickly dismissed me by saying it's probably for his work, which makes zero sense because what kind of work is opening up accounts in your kid's name? I never confronted him about it ever since this incident because I know he will just lie.
This is so sad to me because I feel like, first off, that Cash App thing is fraud. You know,
Yeah.
It seems like
100%.
It seems like his parents have taken advantage of him for so long that it almost feels normal to him. Like he's like, I'm just not going to say anything because I know he's going to lie. Like this is legitimate fraud. Like you could have some sort of like charges pressed against your dad for opening this Cash App account. You know what I mean? Like this is crazy. I get the money that, you know, probably I'm guessing he didn't say his age, but I'm guessing whenever he was in like high school, he had an account with his parents, which you normally do because you trust your parents to like have an account with you to like introduce you to the world of having your own bank account. Right. And they stole from you. I guess that you really legally couldn't do anything because they were on the account. They legally had the right to that money. But this Cash App thing is very crazy to me. What else is he doing with his son's like social security number and things like that? I mean, you're probably going to have to let the previous situation go, but I don't know. This Cash App thing is not sitting well with me. I feel like it might need an investigation into it. Like for me, it's like, what else is he doing with my social security number? If he's finding these things out like this, what else doesn't he know about? Because this person seems very young, kind of naive to the world a little bit. You know, what else is going on out there that this dad hasn't told him about yet, that he hasn't found out about? I don't know.
Yeah. And you know, it's really unfortunate because there's so many instances where parents will take out loans or open up credit cards in their kid's name. And, you know, like this person said, like, you don't think anything of it, especially because you're young and you're supposed to trust your parents. And then here on the back end, like they're screwing you over years down the road when they're going to wreck your finances. And the level of like mistrust and the level of disrespect that has occurred, like it would make it really hard to keep the same relationship that you have with your parents. Like, and I wouldn't be surprised, like based on the mom's response, like I wouldn't be surprised if she knew about this either the whole time or found out about it and just never said anything. Cause to brush that off is just wild to me. Like, I don't know if my mom ever found out that my dad was doing that, like she would look right into it, you know, like she'd be calling the bank herself, but it's just, that's tough, you know?
This is extreme, like lack. I mean, I would never trust my parents again once I found out these things. Like, yeah, maybe taking money from a bank account, like you'd be like, okay, I wonder where that money went, you know? But now like creating like cash apps under my name with my social security number, like the trust is never going to be there for me again. Yeah. And honestly, like, I feel like this dad, like who knows what he's going to do? Like he's probably not going to stop. And like, until your identity is like completely stolen and your credit is just completely wrecked, which maybe it is. Maybe this person doesn't even know. You know what I mean? I don't know. This is so crazy and I feel so bad, and they're so young, you know, they want to trust their parents. They want to believe that they're good people, but they're not. And I don't know. I don't know if this relationship can be mended. It might have to be like a distance type of relationship. But for me, I think what this person really needs to do is, you know, do you still have that same bank account? You know, they're young. I don't know. Do they still have that same bank account with mom and dad on it? If you do, you need to either get them off. And sometimes you need the parent's signature, which I'm just going to empty that account out and leave it alone and they can just whatever. I'm going to get a new bank account. And I'm also going to get identity theft insurance, because if this person or if this dad keeps taking out, you know, it tries to take out loans or does more with this, you know, with his son's social security number, you know, at least that'll be flagged. And then you can have like a monitoring on all of your accounts. This is just so awful that a young person has to do this and start their life like this.
Yeah, it really is. And like this person should definitely put a freeze on their credit, like get a full credit report, look to see if this is this like the first or second time that your dad has done it, or are there other instances? Like there's a good chance there could be credit cards that are maxed out into your name or like loans or anything. Cause if your dad is willing to, I think the worst, like the worst offense is taking the money out of your son's account. Right. Like, I think that to me sounds a lot worse than like opening up a Cash App account. Like that's still just as bad, but like you can see that this is your child's money that either they earned or were given or whatever. And to just take that and do who knows with it. Like that to me is, like you said, like there's no way to like mend that relationship, because these are the people you're supposed to trust. And it seems like they both kind of knew what was going on, and maybe the mom just didn't say anything or I don't know what it is, but that's not a good situation to be in. And I think if you pursue anything, like there's the only way to like fix this from like a financial point of view would be to like, you know, fraud claims on this, right? Yeah. Like, but that would probably have some like legal implications for your dad. Yeah. And so sure. I don't know. Do you kind of just want to cut ties and let be whatever happened and then just move on with your life? Or do you want to pursue this and try to get your money back? Like that's also a tough call to make, right? Because you could be so upset with your parents over whatever they did, but to say that they should be heavily fined or put in jail is a whole nother level too. So it's tough.
The manipulation is just insane, because again, you're right. Like, then your parents going to probably guilt trip you, like, okay, so you're going to turn me in and you're going to press charges and I might go to jail. And then you're like, well, I shouldn't do that because they're my parents. And then they just keep, you know, doing all this stuff to you. And it's just not right. I don't know. My parents were not like this. I could not imagine if this happened to me. Like, I don't even know what I'd do, but I definitely have heard this before. So I know it does happen out there, but yeah, for me, it's like this person, he needs to like, I don't know. He definitely needs to make sure everyone's off the bank accounts and then make sure he's monitoring like his credit reports like crazy. And he may have to press charges someday to get this to stop. I don't know.
Yeah. And like looking beyond this too, like I do think there maybe becomes a point when you get into adulthood where you should just set up your own bank account, like upgrade from that like teen account or that college student account, like get your own accounts. Like, I'm not saying like cut ties with your parents, but like you should be on your own financial standing when you get into adulthood. And like, it also is a protection against something like this happening. And then, like you said, like, I identity theft protection, right? Like that's a good option as well, because you never know what could happen or who has access to your information. Like it's always better to play it safe than it is to just willingly trust anyone who has your information, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on to the next one here. So this one says, lent my friend $7,000 and now he's choosing not to pay me back. What should I do? I'm currently a 19-year-old college student with loans piling up. A couple months ago, my 23-year-old friend suddenly told me he was in $20,000 of debt. I felt like I needed to help him out since I was the only one who knew about it. I sent him about $7,000 and was able to help him pay off 2 credit cards. He still hasn't paid me back. We recently had a falling out and no longer speak. Before we stopped communicating, he promised he'd return the money before my tuition is due. But now he's told me he has no intention of paying me back. I know it's my fault for lending that much and I should have been smarter. He's blocked me on everything, so I decided to contact his brother to help me get to him. Unfortunately, that's when he told me he's no longer paying me back. Should I tell his parents about the situation? I'm not really sure what would happen if I contacted them. As a last resort, what can I legally do to get my money back?
Yeah, unfortunately, like this is one of those instances where you have to pay the stupid tax. And like, I know that sounds harsh, but like this guy clearly took advantage of you. And if you're 19 and in college and this person's 23, either they're a little late to graduating or they've already graduated. Like this is your supposed friend, but who's 4 years older than you. Like they had to have known what kind of financial situation you were if they were going to open up to you and expect that you were going to give them cash to get out of the situation. But it's tough because if you willingly gave this person money and there was only really like a verbal agreement that he'd pay you back, like it being $7,000, like when you're 19, $7,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like, and even when you're an adult, $7,000 is a ton of money. But to pursue like small claims court or like legal ways of getting this money back, like, I don't know. I feel like that's going to be more headache. And at the end of the day, you're still going to have to come to terms with you let this happen because you gave that money willingly to someone who you thought you could trust, but clearly you couldn't. It's a tough situation, but you kind of just have to accept what you did was a mistake on your part and then find a way to move on.
Yeah. What I'll say is they're 19. So they've learned a very important life lesson. It's not funny, but it's just funny because like the person had so much credit card debt that they couldn't pay it off. So this person thought that they would be able to pay their credit cards off and then that person would be able to pay them. Like you have to look into the situation a little bit. It wasn't like my mom is sick and I need this money. It was like, I was irresponsible with credit cards and now I have this debt. So I'm going to ask my 19-year-old friend to pay it. Like, like I said, this person's definitely got a big life lesson here. They will never do this again. And you kind of understand that like, okay, if there's a reason the person's in $20,000 of, credit card debt or something, they're probably not going to be able to pay me back. So probably not a great idea. My rule of thumb is always never lend money with the expectation that you'll get it back. When I when I give somebody money, I consider it a gift. Or you just don't lend the money. You know what I mean? Like it's either or. I don't love the lending of money because it creates this relationship like this one where, the person, they're not friends anymore. Well, I don't think they're ever really friends. It seems like more of a, just a relationship based on getting money from this person. But that's my approach to lending money. Like if you want to, great, but just have the expectation you're not going to get it back. If they do give it back to you, great, but do not go in the expectation that you're going to get it back. I hate that because it creates a really weird dynamic because let's say the person owes you money and you're seeing them on Instagram and they're on vacation and you're like, well, why are they on a vacation? They still owe me money. And then it just creates a lot of anxiety in yourself and I'm just not doing it. So this person learned a very valuable life lesson here and they will never do it again. So stupid tax, move on. At the end of the day, it's $7,000. It's not, for a 19-year-old, it's life-changing, but I'm also guessing it's probably like a little bit of their student loan money that they, you know what I mean? Because they said they have loans piling up. So I'm guessing it was like a refund that maybe they used for school because he said his tuition was due, which is terrible because what if you can't go to school this semester because of this friend, quote unquote friend,
Yeah, like if it feels too awkward to put like a contract in place or a formal agreement because like the person too well or it's family, like if it's too awkward to do that, then it's probably not a good idea to be lending the money. And like you said, Lauren, like at that point, like if you can afford to give the money as a gift, go for it if that's what you can do. And otherwise, like, like I could totally imagine situations where you lend someone money and then you see them doing things, or you're going out and they're going out and it's a whole friend group, and like, that's just going to change how you see that person. And it's also going to be hard for that person to maintain a normal relationship for you, because you're literally their lender and they owe you money, and they're in debt to you, you know, like it's never a good relationship there. I think you just kind of have to accept what you did and what you let happen. Because at the end of the day, you did, whether you had good intentions or it sounded like he had good intentions, like, you did let this happen. And I think you got to move on. And you said it, like, thankfully, this is a lesson that he earned really early on and will hopefully keep him from making worse financial decisions down the road.
Yep. Somebody will ask him in the future, what was the biggest financial regret you've ever made? And that's what he's going to say. So
yeah. Or a family member is going to ask to borrow $7,000 again, and he's going to say, no way.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Would not recommend it. But let's move on to the next one. So this person wrote, is this financial abuse? I'm honestly not sure what to make of this, and I've read conflicting things. Is this really considered financial abuse? I'm a stay-at-home mom and have been for 2 years now. We have 2 children and I'm in school part-time. I have zero access to any funds, which means if I want so much as a stick of gum, I have to ask for it. If I want to drink while I'm on break between classes, I have to ask him to send money. I have to tell him when I need to go to the store because he does not. And he asked me to tell him the exact total, and I don't get a dime extra. I can't go anywhere, do anything, or buy anything without having to ask first. He said this is not financial abuse due to the fact that he gives me money every time I ask for it. And he tells me that I treat him as an ATM. Someone help. Am I losing it?
Oh my gosh. Well, first off, financial abuse is really the one partner controlling all the finances to make the other person, dependent on them. They lose their complete independence. So I would say without a doubt, this is what this person is experiencing. He's almost making her like a prisoner, like with no financial options, like having to ask for everything. And I really don't like that he said, no, this isn't financial abuse. Like you're gaslighting this person.
Totally
right?
gaslighting.
This one makes me hot. I don't like the situation. And I don't like to immediately jump to like, he's doing this and this. Maybe he doesn't see it this way. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to see both sides. Like maybe he doesn't have like ill intentions, but I don't like how he said, like, it's not financial abuse. Like he's thought about it before. But I also question how'd they get here? Like they have kids and everything, but like, did she agree to this? Like, did he say, this is how it'll be since you're like staying at home? Like maybe this will be easier. Like, I want to know how this started. I always question that. Like, did you think this was going to be a good idea? I don't know. This is a tough one. And I really don't like the situation.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. And just to be clear, like I do 100% think this is financial abuse, and like this
100%.
like that. Yeah, that's a heavy term to use, but this absolutely warrants it. But I think throughout all of these situations, like you have to recognize that while the situation may be extremely shitty and maybe you didn't think this would happen or you trusted someone or whatever, like there has to be a level of accountability for how you got there. And I do think that's going to be helpful if you can recognize that, because that's what's going to help you move on. Like you can understand, hey, I also contributed to this. There has to be a level of accountability that happens with this, because you put yourself out there and you didn't think like you would get bit and have to come back, but like you have to recognize that you had to take steps to allow this to happen as well. And even down to this situation, right? Like what stopped you from going down to the bank and opening an account up for yourself and making sure that you had your own money, right? Like I'm sure there was some way that he convinced you to do it. And again, probably gaslighting you and telling you this is for the best. But like, this sounds like honestly, like an over controlling and abusive husband. And I'm not someone who would say like, you need to divorce this person so lightly, but this situation, even more than the last one where we brought this up, is like, this seems like a situation where you really need to distance yourself from this person and set yourself up to where you can make a move out. You can get out of the situation if it comes to it. Because if you're going to him and saying like, hey, like this is really hard for me, it's not working for me, and he's turning it around on you and saying you use him like an ATM, chances are that the moment you do try to leave, like it's going to escalate the situation. And so you got to figure out, like, you almost have to have an escape plan. And that sounds so terrible, because if this is her husband, like this is the person, once you get married, who you should be able to trust the most. And for that person to be, betraying your trust and basically putting you in a hole, like it's a tough situation. And I think for a lot of people, it can cause a lot of like mental strain, in the sense that like, they don't think they can get out of this because there's no light at the end of the tunnel,
No, absolutely not. And I think you're right. I think it was probably, presented to her in like a really good way. Like, oh, you're staying home with the kids. Like, I'll just take care of the finances and you can just, access the money through me. But then it turned into this like, okay, I need $10.05. And he just gives her exactly that. And she doesn't feel like she can do anything else. And this is how, people stay stuck in relationships, because you feel like you have literally no options. And she doesn't, because she's a student now, has no income, and is taking care of their kids. So yeah, you're probably not safe in this relationship. So for me, I'm going to start with, I don't know. I'm not saying in a relationship like this, that's too weird, unless it really was like an innocent thing. And then he says, hey, yeah, we can join on everything again. I don't think he's going to say that. But for me, I'm probably going to try to find family. I know you don't work. You're probably going to have to try to find a family or a friend that you're able to take you and your kids with. And what's probably going to happen here, Nick? He's probably going to go to the courts or whatever and try to get custody of those kids. Because he has the financial means to do so, which is also very scary. And also probably why this happens a lot and people stay, because he threatens them. They get threatened with their kids having to stay with the parent that has the money, in the house that they can afford. But I feel like, I don't know, this is so tricky, but I feel like you have to start with maybe having family that you can move in with. You have a safe place to go. I don't know. Is there some resources out there with a women's, like a women's shelter? They'd probably be a really good guide for you to be able to help you understand like what your options are as far as this goes. I don't know legally what you can do in this type of situation, because it's not physical abuse. It's financial abuse, but at the same time, he's giving you money when you need it or when you need to spend something. So it's just so hard, but this is just so much deeper than just like this money issue here. I really feel for this person.
Yeah. And I feel like situations like this are why people get so hesitant around the idea of combining finances. And they didn't say if they were married, but if you're going to get married with someone, like there has to be such a high level of transparency with the money. And if you're going to combine your finances, like you both need to be on the same page. Like with my wife and I, like this situation literally just could not happen. Like we are co-owners of all of our accounts. Like she has as much authority over what happens with the money from the bank's perspective as I do. And we set it up that way intentionally so that whether there was bad intentions or not, like something like this couldn't happen just by the way that we set it up. And I think if you're going to combine finances to any degree, you have to put those safeguards in place, not because you don't trust the person, but so that you completely avoid situations like this from happening at all.
Yeah. And conversely, like my husband and I, we keep things separate. I have all of my money that I make from my job in my own account. Now we talk about our finances so we know where everything's going, but there's a level of safety there because I have my own money and things like that. This is a really scary situation because this person has no options here. The person, their husband or whoever, husband, boyfriend, they want this. They want to back them into a corner to have zero options so they can control them to the nth degree, whatever they want to control them with. And this is the first step. Ugh, makes me sick.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, like it could be difficult to do something legally about this because, there could be on his end, like a trail of, hey, like I send her money whenever she needs it. Like I am the provider. I could provide more of a stable household for the child. So I think the child should come with me. Like I'm hesitant because I don't know the full story, but I would say like if this definitely isn't a situation where you're losing it and like you're out of step here. Like I think you are probably underreacting, like we've said in an earlier situation. And I think this is time to where you need to start planning, how do I get out of this safely with me and my child intact? And that might mean creating some sort of paper trail, right? Yeah. It might mean like recording conversations when you say, hey, I want to have access to the bank accounts. Hey, I'm thinking of opening my own checking account and I want to put some of that money in there. And you could frame it as, so I don't have to bug you about it, right? Like there could be a creative way that you go about this to make sure that you can have a safe exit from this, because there's too many instances where situations like this turn violent because this person is trying to set up this scenario where they have complete control over everything. And the second you try to tamper with that, that's when they resort to violence because they haven't had to before because of the way that they've crafted it. But now that would be the only option for them to keep things going the way that they want to, which is so unfortunate because this happens probably a lot more than people realize.
Oh, I definitely think it does, which is why I always want both parties to understand the finances and have control of them. I do think this person should potentially maybe contact a lawyer in their area. I know they're not gonna have money, but if they explain like what's happening, I think someone would probably at least give them some friendly advice of like what could potentially like do in this situation, just to see what your options are. Cause like I said, who knows what's going to happen. If she does try to leave or plan some sort of like escape, I don't know. This is so sad.
Yeah, this is a heavy situation. And I think you need to be very intentional about the steps that you take moving forward, and always prioritize making sure that you and your kid are safe. At the end of the day, like that's what you got to do. Yeah. Now, coming out of that, I know that was a very dark situation, but we were hoping to end on something a little bit lighter. And so Lauren and I thought it'd be fun to, since this whole episode was about toxic money, toxic relationships, to play a little game of red flag, green flag. And so just to go over it real quick, I'm going to read Lauren a few different statements, and she can only reply with either green flag if she agrees or thinks it's a good idea, or red flag if she would steer clear of it. And Lauren, there's no caveats here. It's just red or green flag.
Oh, no. Okay.
Okay. So the first one, combining finances with your partner after 1 month of dating.
Red flag.
Easy, right? Mm-hmm. You never discuss money with your significant other because it's always worked out.
Red flag.
You openly talk about your financial goals with friends and family.
Green flag.
You lend money to a friend who you trust will pay you back.
Red flag.
You split bills with your partner based on income and not 50-50.
Green flag.
You keep a stack of cash for emergencies in your sock drawer just in case.
Green flag. Sure.
Okay. You and your friend open a joint credit card together to earn points.
Red flag.
You start investing in cryptocurrencies.
I'm going to say red flag.
You buy gifts and birthday presents for others even when you're in debt.
Red flag.
And the last one, you invest in a business idea that your cousin told you about.
Red flag. I want to say a caveat for just the one.
I do.
Invest in cryptocurrency. I just want to say red flag there, because I feel like I would say green flag if you had like extra money that you just like didn't care about. You don't care about losing. That's okay there. But red flag if you just like start throwing money in there and you're not investing elsewhere. So that's just the only caveat I have. Okay.
100%. Like I admittedly do have some Bitcoin, and it's not a financial advice for you, but like it's also like just a few percent of my total like net worth and investment portfolio. So it's if you're like a serious like investor and you try to find the next like meme coin or whatever, like that's definitely a red flag.
Yeah. All right. Let me read you some and you give me red or green flag. All right. You co-sign on a loan for a family member.
Ooh, easy red flag.
Yep. You always end up covering for a friend who consistently forgets their wallet.
Oh, red flag.
Yep. You take financial advice from your uncle who you only see at Thanksgiving.
Depends how much you can trust that uncle, but probably a red flag.
You let a family member live with you rent-free while they save money.
A green flag.
Yeah. You join bank accounts with your partner before getting married.
Oh, red flag.
You borrow money from your emergency fund to cover holiday gifts.
Oh, no, big no, red flag.
Mm-hmm. You finance a car with 0% interest instead of buying it outright.
Green flag.
Yeah, I'll say that. You frequently talk about your salary with coworkers.
No, red flag.
You pay for a friend's share of rent because they're struggling financially and you trust them.
I'm hesitant, but I'd say green flag.
You avoid discussing money with your partner because it always leads to arguments.
Oh, big red flag.
I love this.
Lean into those arguments if you have to, but
yeah.
The second to last one though about like the rent, like I guess it just depends. Are you lending them the money for rent, or are you just paying it for them because you know this month is hard?
Right.
And do you have the financial means to do so?
Yeah.
Like, I would assume that you're making a smart financial decision, and that makes it a green flag, but probably for most people it would end up being a red flag.
Yeah, I would have said red flag for that, because if they're struggling to pay their rent, which is usually the first thing that people pay when they get paycheck, like I'm concerned for this person. So you probably can't continue to pay that every month for them.
Yeah. And how long is it going to go on before you start paying like their groceries and their dining out and things like that?
Exactly.
All right. Well, that wraps up today's episode of Just Another Money Podcast. And one simple ask, if you enjoyed the episode, you found some value out of it, or you even laughed a little bit, then please, we're just asking that you share it with a friend. That's going to be the best way that you can help us grow.
Yeah. And if you want to have your money question answered on the show, you can visit our website, justanothermoneypodcast.com, and click the submit a question button. And don't forget to join us for our next episode of Just Another Money Podcast. The information, opinions, and recommendations provided on this podcast are for entertainment purposes only and do not constitute professional financial advice. Any financial decisions you make based on the content of this podcast are your responsibility. We strongly recommend consulting with a licensed financial advisor or other qualified professional before making any significant financial decisions. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that we are not liable for any financial outcomes.